Welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm Sal Introdonado. The Black Knight Nation podcast is sponsored by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon was founded by Joe Ross, former Army fullback, former Army assistant coach, and we thank Joe Ross for sponsoring this podcast. And we'd like to bring on a very special guest that we're honored to have tonight, former Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. This is the latest that we've done a podcast live. I appreciate you shuffling your schedule a little bit for mine and coming on the podcast tonight.
It's excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Sal.
No problem. Before we went on, we were talking a lot about what's in the news lately, especially on the Navy athletics side, where Cam Kinley, he was the captain of the Navy football team. He was the president of the senior class of Navy, and he was in Buccaneer, he was signed by the Buccaneers, and now the Navy earlier this week tells him he cannot go right to work out with the Buccaneers. He's got to go fulfill his service. For I don't even know what the policy is anymore. It used to be 2 years, and then you can ask for out. But Ryan, you were talking about how you were involved with the current Army NFL players getting into the NFL, and you had some pretty good stories about that we can talk about. First off, what was talk about your involvement first off with just the current Army football players, the Brett Toast, the Cole Christiansens, the Elijah Rileys, and how you were involved in getting them the NFL chance. So
it was like May, June of 2019, and I was down at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Just got done swimming at the pool, and I went back, and I'm getting dressed, and Adam Schefter, NFL Insider, is on ESPN, and I'm putting my tie on, and he says the Philadelphia Eagles are looking to sign Brett Toth subject to Department of Defense approval, which I would have had a direct role and obviously in reviewing that paperwork and approving, and I thinking Brett Toth, big kid, which one was he? And I picked up the phone and I called General Williams. It was about 7:30 in the morning, and he started going into the particulars how the Philadelphia Eagles had expressed interest, and that Brett was a second lieutenant out at Fort Sill at the time, and we started asking questions like, how much weight has he lost? Could he actually come back and make the conversion? He's been away from football for just about a year, and we quickly got the paperwork. We got him signed, and I personally got involved to call Howie Rosenman, the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he had told me that had the policy been different when Brett came out of college, he would roughly be drafted in the top 3 rounds of the NFL draft. Has that caliber of an offensive lineman. I mean, prolific run blocker, in the words of Howie, and this is a guy that's built a Super Bowl caliber football team. So it was stunning to me. But this was shortly after the president at the time, President Trump, had said he wanted to change the policy, that if we had athletes that were capable of playing professional sports, that we would apply the waiver. Now there's legal. It's kind of a gray issue with the Congress. So when we changed the policy, it was that the service secretaries could waive the service requirement or adjust it. So we put them into like a reserve status, and they could conduct reserve duty in the off season. What we constructed for Brett, because it was done so quickly before a formal policy had been approved throughout the Department of Defense, a uniform across the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps, that Brett was assigned essentially to the Temple University ROTC department while he was going to play for the Philadelphia Eagles. Right around the cuts came, Brett was released by the Eagles, but picked up immediately by the Cardinals, and he made the roster. And then we just flipped it to Arizona State. He dressed for games, and he got snaps that year. So that the challenge was we moved so quickly without the communication to Congress, but ultimately making it a uniform policy across the services, that the implementation became different. I mean, the Air Force has had a couple players that have made the league. Minnesota, they have a long snapper. They had another guy made Anyway, and then they have that one of their punters, once he graduated, went to Alabama, and he punted for Alabama last year and got a national title ring. So the caliber of athletes that are playing at the service academies right now is truly exceptional. And when you get down to brass tacks, we're looking at maybe one or two at best a year. And if you look at that across all of the athletics, which, I mean, Black Knight athletics are thriving right now, whether it's lacrosse or baseball or rugby, that we have individuals that could play at the next level. All told, you're not even looking at a dozen in the graduating class of 1,000 cadets. And then the lifespan of a professional athlete is 22 months in the NFL, for example. They're going to come back and they're going to wear that uniform and they're going to finish their obligation. It's incredible value for recruiting. It helps make stronger teams, but also we get every time one of them gets out on the TV screen, they're talking about how they played football at the academy, that they're going to go on active duty, that they talk about the character of these men and women. So it's immense value for the department. The implementation of policy has been messy, and that's why it's confusing if you see one service versus another make decisions that don't reflect accurate, really in uniform across all the departments.
I always was on the mindset that it should be uniform across the departments, right? In early 2000s, probably like 2000, maybe 4 to 7, there was that alternate service option that the Army used, and Josh Holden was able to play baseball, and Caleb Campbell was able to get drafted by the Detroit Lions. But then I'm sure you had Navy and Air Force say, hey, why are they doing this and we can't do this, or we're not willing to do this, or whatever. And so what are your thoughts on that? Should it try to be as uniform as possible for the 3 major service academies?
Absolutely. Secretary Esper put us down the path to do that. And then we started getting into conversations with our committees of jurisdiction. So if you go to the Congress, every department across the executive branch has a congressional oversight arm. Ours are the Senate and House Armed Services Committee, and then, of course, Defense Appropriations on both the House and Senate side. And you have to go talk to in particular, they call the Armed Services the authorizers, because you're changing a law about how you would execute their service obligations. And, the committees wanted to really understand, how liberal are you going to implement this policy? What is the threshold to allow somebody to go to the next level? And one of the things that General Williams and Mike Buddy, the athletic director, we talked about was, we've got to go out and sell this and explain this to the National Football League in particular, because of how they make investment decisions on these players, because they know the windows of their careers in many cases is 2 to 3 years. And we can't screw around with them, being tugged in one direction to go teach ROTC or, go to have other service obligations. They got to be focused on football. They got to lift weights. They got to watch tape. So we needed to do a better job with that. That was as much on me as it was on them. But as an institution, needed to do a better job explaining they're going to be there and they're going to be able to play, and we'll get them on the other side. So that was the first thing. But then getting back to just the feasibility, we talked a lot about draft grades. I mean, what is the draft grade of this individual? I talked to the general manager of the Chargers about Cole Christensen, and that's why, stroke the pen, he made the team. So it was us getting the maturity as an athletic department about, do these individuals really have the goods to make it to the next level? And then we go forward with applying a waiver to them. So we had to grow in this process and ultimately get it refined in such a way so that we can make these calls very quickly and easily, and you could justify them to the Congress, the American people, the taxpayers that paid for the tuition for them to go there to school.
Do you think what Navy this apparently had happened earlier? It was announced on Monday, but this is something that had happened maybe a few weeks back, I had heard that, Navy baseball players weren't going to get a chance to go immediately to the minor leagues or professional baseball. Do you think that this eventually will become uniform and the Army and Air Force will follow what Navy has recently done and rescind these opportunities for, athletes, or no?
I don't know. Obviously I left government in January, that this policy was not mature, that these are one-offs that have come forward as far back, to your point, the early 2000s, that it takes a lot of communication to the alumni, all the old grads of West Point, to the committees of jurisdiction who have oversight of the Department of Defense, to explain the rationale, the justification, and then ultimately why we're going to get behind these athletes and give them this opportunity. That takes a lot of energy. And, and you just had a change in administration. You have new players in particular in these policy roles that are going to make these decisions. So, it's unfortunate we didn't get the concrete to dry before I left my job, but there's information there, and there are track records, recent ones. I mean, Connor Slumka, he got cut by the Jags, but he got invited. Cole Christensen made it. Elijah Riley, Brett Toth. I mean, I remember meeting all these young men, watching them play in college, talking to them about this opportunity. Stroke the pen on their waivers, and 3 for 4 is pretty good, right? That's Hall of Fame stuff, but that's pretty good for the program. That's great for the institution. It's great for the Army, but it's building that track record, and then being able to show how these guys rate it and how they're going to ultimately come back and fulfill some type of service requirement, whether it's longer time in the reserves or they do active duty stint after a couple of years in the league.
Yeah, I believe Connor Slumka is back into. I mean, he's
serving. Getting after it.
Yeah, he's serving, and that probably happened as soon as it didn't work out for him in the NFL, right? That's He was back to being an Army officer. I just look at right now we have John Radigan, who just graduated West Point, has been assigned by the Seahawks, and he's in their offseason program too. So I just wonder. I don't even know if you can answer this. This is me just talking out loud. Like the guys like Riley and Christensen and Toth, they're are they grandfathered, so to speak, or could they possibly be, all of a sudden be summoned to go back to being Army officers?
Well, I think, stroke of a pen, they could be back at Fort Benning. So I think it could happen very quickly. I have not heard of anything that would jeopardize their current stance. It's the challenge is that when the policy wasn't smooth, that there's still a lot left open. You have new people that have entered the department that may take a different look to it. But this is the sort of thing that General Williams will work with the Department of the Army and ultimately Office of Secretary of Defense. And, they're thriving in these opportunities. And I think it's really great for the Army.
Yeah, and it was different. I know that back when in the 2000s that we were talking about, there was the world-class athlete program, which I'm not sure even exists, and I'm not sure if it exists anymore to that extent, because you do have hockey players in the professional ranks from Army. You do have a soccer player for the Portland Timbers out there that is a recent Army grad. So I mean, you like you said, these are success stories, right? These are graduates who were granted the opportunity to pursue the professional ranks, and they are making teams and they are playing. And like you said, the benefit for the academy, the benefit for the Army is there when they're out there and when they're not on the field, on and off the field, right?
Absolutely. A lot of very talented 18-year-olds all think they're going to play professional football, and they get into the Division I ranks, and they see how hard it is just to play Division I football. And even a team like Alabama, who wins the national title, and they get maybe a dozen players that go across all 7 rounds of the NFL draft, and not all of them make the league. Now, you might have 6 of them go in the first round, and they're going to make it, but not all of them. So, the statistical probability to reach the NFL, it's actually better to get hit by lightning. So, it's something that as you mature, you get to play the Division I sport, which is truly incredible. But over time, the maturity comes. But it's a tool for recruiting. It makes better football teams. You get one or two players that are NFL caliber, you're going to win bowl. You're going to go to bowl games. That's for sure. And it helps really from the standpoint of why it was so important to me when I was the Undersecretary of the Army, the Secretary of the Army. You put it into context. 1,000 officers a year come out of West Point. We'll commission 5,000 every summer. 20% of every officer cohort in the United States Army graduated from West Point. So that is your platform, your foundation. And you want them to have the attitude and the effort of winners. You hear General McCarthy talk about winning matters all the time. The mindset. Winners have a very strong attitude. And when you win in football and you win in baseball and you win in hockey and you win in lacrosse, there's an attitude that comes out of that institution. I mean, you look at universities in this country, why they pour so much money into athletics, brings that spirit, the pride in the institution. And the teamwork you get, the friends you make, it's incredible for our profession, for officers to have that discipline, maximizing repetitions. 90% of how well they do before they ever deploy anywhere is going to be decided before they ever got on that airplane. And nothing can be a better way to learn how to do that well in this profession than athletics.
Yeah, I mean, just in past guests on this podcast, from Scott Speldman, who's the chief of the engineers, to Pat Work, who works in the Pentagon, they swear by the lessons that they learned on the field at West Point and how it's helped them lead soldiers and be very, just as far as being officers and moving up the officer ranks, and how those lessons at West Point on and off the field have really helped them out. So absolutely. This is something that, I mean, obviously, Ryan, when you were the Secretary of the Army, this is something that you really believed in, right? I mean, this is something that you seem to be pretty passionate in because, under your watch, you said that Brett Toth, Elijah Riley, Cole Christensen, and Connor Slumka, you did sign off on those guys. So it's something that you really believe in the mission, so to speak.
Absolutely. When I was the Undersecretary, I went out to that game when they played at Oklahoma in Norman. And, you look at the offensive line play. I mean, they're giving up 25, 30 pounds across the line of scrimmage. And these guys were getting pad level underneath them, locking into them. And they rushed for like over 400 yards on Oklahoma and took them to overtime. And when they left the field, all 90,000 people in Norman gave them a standing ovation when the Army team went off the field. And one of the things that you couldn't be more proud of, they go in the locker room and they cleaned the locker room before they left. No tape on the floor, no crushed paper cups or anything like that. It was as clean as when they walked in. Not only did they take a team that went on to play in the national semifinals to overtime, they left with as much class as they came in. And it's really remarkable. When you have experiences like that and you watch them do that. And that really galvanized the team. They went on, they didn't lose another game the rest of the season. They go into a bowl game and they killed that, was it Houston team or something? But it was incredible. But you really feel it. And it's not just football. I was there in the fall of, I think it was 2019. We went and saw women's rugby. Sammy Sullivan, player of the year, and just watch those women just pound. Who were they playing? Quinnipiac or something, and just killed them. And down there, it's freezing cold and muddy, and you see the character of those women. They're going to be tremendous officers. I mean, this kind of person I'd want to be in charge of my daughter. They were just remarkable young women. We stayed out there all night, freezing cold, and it was great, really great time. I was down there with the soup and had a lot of laughs, but it's when you see that character that they have and the way they love their teammates, and they're really the physical and mental toughness they displayed. It was really, really impressive. But you're seeing that across all the sports. And I really credit a lot of it. It started with Boo Corrigan, but Mike Buddy has not skipped a beat as the athletic director, and it's continuing to grow and bringing in the more very talented head coaches and assistants to fill out these staffs that really understand the culture.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you because
understanding the culture, but they're bringing that winning mentality.
I was gonna ask you. Sorry for interrupting there. I was gonna ask you about you as an Army fan, but I wanted to get to this real quick. Pat Work here, his description of you. Are you ready for this? I got. I
don't know if you want to do that, Dave.
You were on the group chat, weren't you?
Yeah, it's okay. You can edit that. That's fine.
Well, one of the things he said about you is a spine for days. A spine for days. I don't know. I that's the one that stuck out for me. Now you were an Army Ranger before you graduated from Virginia Military Institute, and then how did you become on the path to become an Army Ranger? Is it something after? How did that work out for you?
Infantry school, and went to the 3rd Infantry School, Ranger School, all of the prerequisite requirements to basically put in your paperwork to apply for the Ranger Regiment. And then you go through a series of basically a series of physical, mental, and emotional kind of testing. Go in front of a board of senior officers and non-commissioned officers. Started preparing me for life in front of congressional testimony a long time ago, really. And then they ultimately select you for service into the Ranger Regiment. But you have to really perform well in your conventional assignment. You need to really be in that top 1% just to apply. And, I really, when you look at the experience as a Ranger student and then ultimately selected to the Ranger Regiment, what makes it was such an important part of my life, because in Ranger School, a third of your grade is peer evaluations. Would they follow you? Would they believe in you? And then ultimately in the Ranger Regiment, the power of the non-commissioned officers to be able to say, this guy's not cutting it. So the non-commissioned officers have tremendous influence. And that's really important, that your teammates believe in you and that you can hang around. So I did well in my conventional assignment, and got through the selection process within the Ranger Regiment, and ultimately went to war with them during the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, 20 years ago. So it just shows you how long this conflict has gone on. But it was an amazing experience. I met the finest people I met in my life. That's where I met Pat Work. He and his wife Mara are dear friends of our family. They're the godparents to our daughter. So what I think of him, and really, as you take a step back, several other many Black Knight football players, Lee Langford, John Stoll, these guys have become just like family. Really wonderful people. Lee Gibson, Benny Coronado, guys I served with over the years. They're great. And I asked Ben Coronado to be a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, represent us in the state of Arizona. It's a program. There have been less than 500 people since 1922 that have ever been in that program. And they select these individuals to represent the Army in our communities. And Ben's out there. He's been very successful in business since getting out of the Army. Beautiful family, 3 children. These guys continue to serve their country. They've been an important part of my life. They've been there for me on the worst day of my life and the best day of my life. It's why it's so important to me that for a host of reasons, that the institution continues to remain strong and produce the best that America has to offer, because we need them now more than ever.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, really, how did you become an Army football fan, right? Or how did you become, because I've heard that you're pretty, diehard Army football fan to a point. Does that start with when you're in maybe serving and you're spending time with these guys, or did it start long before that?
No, the first time I think I went to an Army Navy game was back in the 90s,
okay,
late 90s. And then obviously 2001, I was in Afghanistan, but so it became very hard to go to games. But was back, I think it was 99 the first time I went. And you got to, you got into an environment where they all got back together because you were serving with a handful of these guys. And you got to meet several others. And then over time, over the course of 20 years, I've worked with many of them, spent time with them in the Pentagon and other places. And as you kind of grew up in life together, married, have children, and we all kind of grown as individuals, I've grown up with them. And there's some very difficult experiences, and then obviously wonderful ones like weddings and baptisms and things like that. So football was a big part of it. But really, the life experiences that I share with them are much greater.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when you're the Secretary of the Army, you talked about being, you talked about being at Oklahoma, right? And I'm sure you got to attend an Army-Navy game, and what that experience was like. Because you talked about your first Army-Navy game in 1999, but then what it was like when you were, Secretary of the Army, and the Army-Navy game is going on. And I was going to ask you about how what was that like?
So, I think I was the undersecretary for one in 2017 and in 18. And 17 was the one with the snow, right? Wasn't that the one with the white uniforms? The 10th Mountain game?
Yeah.
And the year after was the big red one. Yeah, that's how I remember. Yeah. Those were terrific. You stand on the sidelines. It's hard not to, get anxiety because, so much is at stake. Because you really have to look at it from our perspective. The trash talking in the Pentagon is at epic proportion. And you got midshipmen coming down and putting crap all over your doors, breaking into your office. And we got guys from the old guard guarding our offices and stuff like that. And so beating them is as important to us as it is to the Corps cadets for bragging rights. But when you go, you realize, that game is even bigger than, quite frankly, West Point or the Naval Academy. I mean, all over the planet, people are watching that game on aircraft carriers and forward operating bases and posts and stations all over the world. And they get to represent the institution. They stand down there with the team. It's hard to articulate how blessed I was to get to do it several times from that standpoint. And then ultimately to get to address the team. I've been in the locker room after losing one, but I've been in the locker room for winning 3. So it felt a lot better, obviously. But how much emotion is involved with that game and what it means to those players, what it means to the institution. To be a part of it is extraordinary, and it's something that I'll remember the rest of my life and cherish. But it really was, it was fun. This last one that we had in the midst of a pandemic, and we came down to the wire. The city of Philadelphia wasn't going to let us have the Corps or the midshipmen there. And I balked at that. I said, these kids, especially those seniors that not have this opportunity. And we went back and forth, and the city said they were going to sue us. And, we got like 10,000 lawyers. So I'm like, bring it on, man. I'd rather be in a lawsuit for the next 5 years than have these 4,000 cadets coming after me. But you knew how important it was to them. So we went back and forth, and the great thing is the Naval Academy Stadium is in Annapolis. So when you go outside of the stadium, you're in downtown Annapolis. So now the city of Annapolis, the state of Maryland, wouldn't let you do it. And Mikey Stadium is on federal property. So we had the chess moves, we had them boxed. And we boxed the Naval Academy really hard, and the Sec Nav took a beating, and he's an alumnus. And we got the game to have it up at Mikey. And we're pretty excited about that. The thing that's a real, a bummer is that we couldn't get the parents there. We were working out the math of who we'd have. We had the cadets, we had the brigade of midshipmen, and you had a lot of faculty and staff. That was the real thing that hurts, that the parents didn't get to see, especially the seniors get to play that final Army-Navy game, but they got to play.
Yeah.
And you look at the history, they shut them out. That hadn't been done since 1969.
Yep.
And then to play there, this last time they played there was like the 40s.
Yeah.
So extraordinary amount of history that day, and just listening to all the Corps cadets, with about 2 minutes to go, yelling, "Start the buses." I mean, it just felt so good. Yeah. I mean, it felt so good. It was criminal. And then they got to win the game. So it was great.
Yeah. That's something that you're not going to see, back-to-back weeks of, Army hosting Navy and Air Force for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, right? And the way those games went down too. Were you at the Air Force game also, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, how incredible is that for them the way those two games unfolded, to witness that? I mean, like you said, there are the Brigade of Midshipmen, there are the Corps of Cadets, and maybe some personnel from each academies, but not a lot of people got a chance to witness both of those games in person like you did, and to know your position and know how really hard you root for, Army anything. I mean, that must have been really what an experience.
Yeah, and the incredibly hard fought games. If you look back at that Army-Navy game, it was really that defensive line. I mean, they absolutely pounded Navy, and they couldn't get off the ball, and barely got across the 50, and they had one goal line stand that was incredible.
Yeah.
I remember, it was just amazing. I was right down there watching it, standing right behind Munkin, and amazing. And then the following week, when the offensive line literally marches it 80 yards down the field and punches it in on 4th down. I mean, Darrell Williams picked me up off the ground. I mean, and you looked around, and there wasn't a lot of folks in the stadium because of the pandemic. But there was the same level of emotion from the families that were there, and the handful of faculty and staff that were there, because we're approaching the holidays. And then you go down there in the locker room, and then we had another battle for about a week about a bowl game.
Yeah.
Because was it the Liberty Bowl we're signed up for now?
Yeah,
right, Freeport.
Yeah, they were able to play the Liberty Bowl.
They blinked, but then they got the opportunity to play West Virginia.
Yeah,
so you look at those football players; they didn't get to go home from like August till about January. The mental toughness it takes to stay focused, to continue to do that. Obviously one of those seniors, they have that opportunity to get to play in that bowl game, and they did that, and they played West Virginia tough that whole 4 quarters. But it was a lot of challenges, the adversity they faced for the season off the football field, to continue to make that even tougher for them. It's really something. How proud you got to be of those men in particular on the football team, but all the sports teams face this.
Yeah,
I mean, look, the baseball team has gone to the playoffs. 3 of the last 4 years?
Yep.
The lacrosse team's making the tournament. The rugby teams are exceptional. All those sports are making it to postseason play. It's a great thing.
No doubt. I was going to ask you if you had any insight on. I got a lot of questions about this over the last few months about, Army won the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, right? And but they didn't get the visit to the White House. Was that more of a pandemic thing, you think, or do you have any insight on that, and maybe why the team wasn't able to make it to the White House and that fulfill that honor that the Commander-in-Chief's trophy champions get?
Yeah, all of those events have really been compressed. Many teams that won national championships did not get the opportunity to go see the president, have the Rose Garden ceremony. It's unfortunate. It's the spoils of winning that coveted trophy. But these are extraordinary times. Sal, that it's unfortunate. I mean, they're playing a game in empty stadiums, and so it's awful. But they're still getting to have the opportunity to play, but there are things that they're going to miss out on, and for that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that fires up the team that's coming back, right, to defend the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, and hopefully maybe next time around get that trip to the White House. And this Ryan, we talked about how this Army team, right, what they overcame last year, right, in the season that they were able to have Commander-in-Chief's trophy champions, 9-win season, and a lot of these guys are back. A lot of these guys are back, and we're getting really close to the season opening game at Georgia State. I was just wanted to get maybe your take a little bit about, they announced their captains today. They announced their 4 captains, and Ryan, they're all on defense. I don't know the last time I've ever saw that for an Army football team where all the captains are on defense. 4 of them. Markel Broughton said,
"Yeah, I saw that. He's a junior, right? I got to know him a little bit. He is an amazing story. What a great kid he is, and got to know him a little bit, and I'm glad he got picked. Tremendous character in that young man."
Yeah, his mom is Frederica Daniels, who's actually posting comments on here. So his mom is actually listening right now.
Oh, good. She did an amazing job raising him, and we're lucky to have him.
Yeah, and you look, so it's Markel, Cedric Cunningham, Nolan Cockrell, and Eric Smith, all from a defense that led the nation.
Oh, yeah, Cockrell, he's a beast. He's the one that the goal line stand, right? Isn't he the one?
Yeah, he's the one in the goal line stand.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah. I mean, I've talked a little with Markel. I have not had a chance. I did not get the chance to talk with those other guys. But look, defense wins championships. This is, you keep the other team's offense off the field. That's how we're going to, you're going to get back to a bowl game. You're going to beat Navy again and keep that trophy in the locker room where it belongs.
Yeah, I mean, just the talent that they have coming back, and just the fact that I thought it was pretty unique to have those 4 guys be named captains. That was the news of the day. And just wanted to get your take a little bit on, just like you said, just watching a game at Mikey Stadium. You were able to take in both of those Commander-in-Chief's trophy games. Even though it was a little bit different in the pandemic, the historic setting of Mikey Stadium, and what that was like for you to be able to get to a game there, and just the surroundings, so to speak.
So if you look at the fall before the pandemic, the fall of 19, I went up there to see him play. I think it was UMass, and this was after about 3 or 4 straight losses, and everybody's really getting worried about the season. And spent about 2 days with the Corps going to all kinds of sports, and watched the team really turn themselves back around, and they pounded UMass, and they beat them by a couple touchdowns, but physically really put it to them. But it was fun because the Corps was there and the whole stadium was there, and it's a fun time because the fans are very emotional about it. They're very bought in. There's not the, like you see in some college stadiums where the people are there, and it's the size of the stadium is about just right, where you have the size of a crowd where there's not a bad seat in the place. Similar to some more newer stadiums like TCU and others, there's about 40,000. When you're in stadiums like that, you can really stay into the game. It's just loud enough. It's just where you can feel it. So I've enjoyed every time I've been to the game. I've been to many games there before that. But the vibe of the crowd is good. They're all into the game. They love being there. And I was there. It was a beautiful day prior to the pandemic. So it was a really good time. And they won, so it made it even better.
Yeah, and once they kick the song Tsunami, and the cadets get rolling, and you see the football players get the cadets going too. I mean, that is, before the first kickoff, that is something to watch too. Not to take any, you're having the ball being brought in off a guy jumping out of a helicopter on the good days, right, where there's no wind. And just the traditions at West Point is definitely something that people should not. Once things, we don't know yet if there'll be fans back this year at Mikey Stadium. We hope there'll be some, and hopefully they'll get back to some of those traditions that people that have been following the program have loved to see every game day. I don't know where we are right now with that. I hope that they I think that there might be similar to maybe what the professional ranks are doing, where if you've been vaccinated, maybe there'll be an opportunity for you to maybe see an Army game this
Well, I think if you look at the trend in the country right now, I think by the fall we're going to be in really good shape. The vaccinations are moving out very quickly, and what you try to find out is, or you'll probably never really find out, is that the percentage of the population's already had COVID-19, coupled with the numbers of individuals that have been vaccinated. America's going to reach herd immunity a lot sooner than we think. But you look around the country right now, masks are coming off and people are going back to work. We're going to beat this thing finally once and for all, and we're going to get everybody back in stadiums, and we're going to have fun and do the things we enjoy in life. But if I were to bet on it, I would be bullish on people being in stadiums this fall.
Yeah, September 11th is Army's home opener against Western Kentucky. So, I mean, that's something that we're definitely going to keep an eye on. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your love for the academy, football, the Army? Anything else you'd like to share with us before we end this?
Look, I have obviously a tremendous fondness for the institution because of the men and women that I have met, that I've served with in uniform and in the Pentagon as an appointee. They've become my closest friends. They are the godparents to our daughter. They were at our wedding. They've been instrumental at every facet of my life. The best days of my life, the worst days of my life, they were there. It produces such amazing men and women that are the foundation of every Army officer cohort that we have on active duty. So keeping it strong and keeping the best and brightest in there and graduate them and put those bars on their shoulders is important. It's as important for the Army as it is for the whole country. So you keep telling their stories, Sal, and we'll keep watching. And I told you about some of the guests that I've talked to that want to come on. So we'll get you some more guests, and we'll keep pumping the Black Knight Nation. Okay.
I appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.